He doesn't know, so you can say anything.
Yeah, he didn't even. Yeah.
You can just say I had him in the cell phone.
So, hey, Dad.
That's when you start getting old, is when you forget, you don't remember what you had for breakfast a day or 2 days before.
Unless you eat the same thing.
You're really getting old is when you go to have dinner, you forgot what you had for lunch. I mean, for breakfast.
Or you go to have dinner and forgot that you just had dinner an hour ago.
I do that with my medicine. I have to put my medicine somewhere else.
Yes.
On my dresser, so I know that means I took it.
And it's like, was I just thinking I needed to take it? Or
Hey,
did I
hey, Dad. So, happy birthday, by the way. Can you take us through a quick journey of where you were
I tell her
born,
that's why I
what
get
city, and then just where you moved from city to city to city?
And then she forgets what she was saying.
Yeah. So what happened with Joe and
Seed is hard.
They got hit with heart attack right around the time he started. What are we trying to remember? And then
Oh,
So, when you were born,
what year?
no, year and where, and then go from there. The cities that you grew up in.
Okay, I think it's your recording.
Yeah. Sorry, I should tell you that in the beginning.
It's against the law.
Do I need a? I should have asked for.
Okay, I was born March 30th, 1934, in my parents' home in Osage City, Kansas.
That's right.
And I lived there for 7 years when my mom and dad got a divorce.
and rebuilding the system.
So we moved, mom and us 3 boys, moved to Melbourne, Kansas. My oldest brother, Bob,
That was the biggest reason.
stayed in Osage City to finish his senior year.
That's right.
You guys to do
And then when he completed his 7th year, last year, the World War I, the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor.
And so everything was
And
manual.
so he joined the Marines. So he was off to the Marines.
So he got drafted.
No, he joined the
Oh,
Marines.
voluntary.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we were in Melbourne, Kansas, which was a small town of about 400 to 500 people. The main street was a gravel road,
And that was you, Grandma, and your brothers by yourselves?
and Bob and Bill.
By yourselves?
Yeah.
She moved out. She was a single mom for a while.
Yes.
Okay.
Oscar went with us.
Oh, he did.
Yes.
Okay.
They weren't married then,
Right.
but he went with us.
I see.
And we were there for a year and a half.
Okay.
And we moved to Topeka, Kansas. The 5 of us
Okay.
moved to Topeka, Kansas. And we moved to 413 West 4th Street in Topeka. Lived in a basement apartment. Times were tough. We were poor. The shower was like a shower you would have in a basement. Was just concrete. The one room that we had was concrete. So in the winter, it got wet. And we were there for a short time and moved to 510 Topeka Boulevard, which was about a block around. So I kept going to the same grade school. And I went from Sumner Grade School to Roosevelt Junior High. Then we moved to 913 West 8th, where I went to Roosevelt for my 7th grade. And 913 West 8th turned out to be a very interesting house. Sylvia and her family moved to 913 West 8th and lived in the same house that we had lived.
Before you guys had moved there, or after?
No, after.
After you guys had left 913?
Yes.
Mom's family moved in there?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And so then we moved to 610 Topeka Boulevard, West 10th Street, where I started to go to Crane Junior High for my 8th and 9th grade. And I went to Topeka High School, which was a half a block away from where we were, for the sophomore year. We then moved to 1315 Mulvane Street in Topeka. And that's when I saw Sylvia for the first time, when I was sitting in a barbershop on a Saturday morning getting a haircut. And I saw this good-looking girl walking down the street, and she had on a pair of tight jeans, and she looked gorgeous. And she had a scarf on, like she had just, back then the girls got their hair wet and so on. They didn't have blow dryers then.
Yeah.
So you'd wear a scarf, and so she was walking down, and I just made a mental note of that. And then sometime later, a friend of mine invited me to go to Central Congregational Church on a Sunday night to a teen meeting, a Christian teen church thing. And lo and behold, Sylvia was there. So I asked my friend, I gave him a quarter to fix me up a date with Sylvia. Later on, much later on, I found out she had given him a quarter also to fix up a date.
He scored.
So
He made out on this deal.
it only cost me a quarter, man.
Well, there's a loaf of bread back there. Gallon of gas.
So then I graduated, had a football scholarship at Washburn University, attended 1 year, and I made the mistake of, on my term English paper, that I copied down something from a book, word for word, which would have been fine if I'd have made a footnote, but I didn't make a footnote. Well, a little bit before that, this English class, somehow the lady got onto why women are going to college nowadays, and that was in 1952. And she said that she thought that women nowadays were going to college to get an education and better their chance in life. And I held up my hand. Worst thing I ever did. Sometimes you shouldn't give your opinion if it's not really asked for.
Right?
And I said, could I add something to that? And she says, go ahead, Mr. Griffith. And I said, I personally believe girls are going to college nowadays to find a man who's going to have a good lifestyle so they can latch onto a good husband. And most of the class clapped for me.
They all have the same opinion.
She got tears in her eyes. And I didn't think any more about it because I had a strong B going into that semester grade. And so I came in to take the final exam. She threw my term paper in front of me. No use you even sitting here any longer, Mr. Griffith. And across my term paper, and it was like 22 pages long, said plagiarism. So she nailed my butt. And another football player. So what that F did was canceled my scholarship. And I begged her to let me go to summer school and make it up, and she said absolutely not. So that stopped my college for, I think. Then I got some interesting jobs. I got jobs working as a cement finisher's helper, an iron worker's helper, electrician helper. I got some basic knowledge of all of construction. Then I got a job representing Archer Daniels Midland Company, who was building a 180-foot tall silo where we're going to process wheat. I was the only person on site that worked for Archer Daniels. Everybody else worked for the prime subcontractor, which was Roberts Construction Company. And I checked all the materials come in. I signed off on them to show that we got this amount of lumber, this amount of concrete. I also, in each truck of concrete that came in, I would take a big cylinder and fill it up with the concrete, and then put it in a big sand, bury it in the sand pile. And then a week later, I would take that down to the highway department and get tested for strength.
Yep.
Then I'll skip ahead to meeting Sylvia, and then in '54 we got married, and then in '56 I got drafted.
So you're 20 years old
Yes.
when you guys got married.
And in Kansas at that time, the male had to be 21 where they could get married on their own. So my mother had to sign for me to get married. She had to give me permission. And she said, sure, I'm going to sign that, Jerry. Get your butt out of here. And Sylvia was 18 when we got married, and the next day she was 19. Then I got drafted, went to Fort Carson, Colorado in the wintertime where it was below zero every day, snow, miserable. We all thought we were headed to Korea, because Korea was just, and Korea in the wintertime gets as cold as Colorado. But when I went on the 7th week of 8 weeks of training, I went to reassignment, where they would tell you where your next assignment's going to be when you finish the 8th week. And I walked down, and this master sergeant pulled out a folder. Is your family rich? And I said, no. Do you know a congressman or a senator? No. He said, I cannot believe where you're going to go. And he was scaring me. I thought he's pulling my leg and he's going to give me some raunchy duty somewhere. He said, you're going to Chicago, Illinois, and work at 5th Army headquarters, where there's no barracks, so you'll have to provide your own housing, and you'll be given per diem every day that helps pay for that. And you'll be working 8 to 5, 8 hours a day in a Class A uniform, and that was it. There was no barracks, no mess hall. We ate like we just joined the Army, but we were still not really in the Army. So that ended. We came back to Topeka, and I joined General Dynamics, who had come into town to build E-class Atlas missiles, 9 sites around the Forbes Air Force Base in Topeka. When I say around the base, I mean they'd be 10 miles this way, 20 miles this way. And that took, what did that take, a year and a half? I think it took a year and a half. And then I was offered a transfer to Aldous, Oklahoma, where they were going to do the new F-series missiles. The E-series was half underground and half above. The F-series was totally underground. And they were having 12 sites around Altus. So I went there. I drove down. When I found a house, Sylvia and the kids being Carrie, Kathy, and Lori, flew in an airplane that the company paid for, Piper airplane. A year later, the guy who flew that plane crashed, and they found out that he was a heavy alcoholic.
Oh, jeez.
So I think, God, you blessed us again. But anyway, I had flown with him to Roswell, New Mexico, to General Dynamics to pick up our payroll for that 2 weeks.
So where did he fly you and the girls to?
Aldous, Oklahoma.
Aldous, Oklahoma. Okay.
Then he flew me to Aldous. When we took off from Aldous and we're leaving, and it was just starting to get dark. And he said, I really don't like this. And I said, what do you mean you don't like this? He said, I don't like to fly at night with a one single engine. Oh, thanks for letting me know that. But we got there, we got back safely.
Roswell, that's interesting. Because that's Area 51,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
And you guys were going there, to pick up payroll.
pick up payroll.
That's where the government was printing out their payroll?
we had General Dynamics, another site at Roswell,
Oh, okay.
a 12
I see.
missile site at
I got you.
Roswell.
I got you. So they were there
Yeah.
under government contract, General Dynamics was. I got you.
So we were there for a while, and then the job was complete, and at that point I didn't know what I was going to do. And my boss came in and offered me a job to go back to Topeka to do an update on the E-Series and be an assistant to the base commander who worked for General Dynamics. Install the update system with all the sites. So did that. That lasted a year. Then it was done. Then they offered me a job at corporate headquarters in San Diego.
So that's when I was born then,
You were born.
You were born in Topeka just before we went.
before you
Before
left.
we left.
Yeah.
We left Altus and you were born.
You left Altus, went to Topeka, and then I was born, and you guys went to San Diego.
You were born in
You were born in Stormont Vale, same place.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You guys were in Altus,
Yeah.
moved back to Topeka for a year,
in
and during that
December.
course,
We moved back in
I was born. Oh, so you were pregnant with me in Oklahoma. So I was conceived in Oklahoma, I can say. Okay.
See, there wasn't much to do in Oklahoma. That's,
Sounds to me like there was plenty to do.
Yeah.
Sounds to me like you were busy. Okay, so then you
so
came to
now
San
we're
Diego.
in San Diego, and we both fell in love with San Diego. We wanted to spend the rest of our lives in San Diego. But Secretary McNamara, Robert McNamara, Secretary of Defense, came out and said, we're doing away with the Atlas missile program. So that cost, if I remember right, something like 13,000 people in San Diego a job. So naturally, and I did everything. I even looked at selling stationery, being a salesman and selling stationery because we wanted to stay. But I was having a tough time, so I sent out my resumes, and one was to Computer Science Corporation in El Segundo. And they called me and went in for an interview, and they offered me a job on the spot as an accountant. Worked there 4.5 years, which was tremendous experience. I really, after working with the programmers and systems analysts, the top people in the business at the time, I wanted to become a programmer. But they started an in-house accounting package. So I became the liaison between the accounting department and the programmers and analysts. So I talked to guys because I'd taken a course at UCLA Extension, downtown LA, for COBOL. And COBOL was relatively easy. It was nice. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because you started with nothing, and I designed, my term project was to build a program. So I built a payroll program where you put in information punch cards, giving the employee's name, number, clock number, whatever, and all the hours, and then do all the reports, the tax returns, the quarterly tax. And when I got it to run, there it was. It really felt good because it brought out a creative side. Accounting, you can be creative, but it's not like being creative. You can mess with numbers and move them around and do things. And Oh, by the way, I want to regress and go back. That term paper that she gave me an F on,
Plagiarism one?
I give it to my history professor for extra. I got an A on it. No kid, that is not a lie. I got an A on it.
Nice.
But he had this thing for football players too, so. Plus I caught him,
Playing with the secretary.
was going to go to a Friday class, but Sylvia her folks had sent her up to Crete, Nebraska to Doane University to get her away from me. Figured that would break us up. So I was going to take off on this Friday, not go to class on Friday, drive up to, it was like 80, 90 miles, which back then, that was a long ways. In a 39 Chevy where I had to have 3 or 4 extra tires, that I could put in the back seat because I couldn't afford good tread tires. So I was on my way, and I stopped before I passed the Nebraska border into a little diner. I walk in, there sits the professor of history, my professor of history. He was supposed to be in class. And I tapped him on the shoulder and, "Oh, hi, Jerry. What are you doing here?" And I explained I was going to go up to see Sylvia. So next Monday, he took roll. He said, "I had a family emergency and I couldn't be here Friday, so I'll ask all of you to be on your honest who was here." So he said, "Okay, everybody that was here last Friday for the class, raise your hand." He looked around. He looked at me and he smiled and said, "Okay, I got all of you."
That's fun.
I wouldn't tell anyone if you don't tell anyone.
The man code right there.
Is that enough?
No, that's funny. You're doing good, man. Keep going. So you regressed, but now we'll go back to, you ended up at
Computer science.
computer science in El Segundo.
Yeah, and computer science, a guy who, this was back in the 60s, who saw a need for programmers and analysts for companies that were so small couldn't afford a programmer and analyst on the payroll. So he said, I'll get all these tremendous analysts and programmers and we'll rent them out by the hour. You want a new program? 8 hours or whatever.
Kind of like app builders today.
And that thing went bananas. When I joined the company, I was the 5th person in the accounting department. There were a total of 200 people there. When I left 4.5 years later, there were 55 people in accounting, and there was a little over 4,000 people.
So it's tenfold.
And a lot of these people, a whole bunch of them were in NASA, working in NASA, and they were all over the country. And he was a young guy, 35, tall, slim, good-looking dude, single. He had his own airplane. He'd go down to LAX on Friday, get in his plane and fly to Santa Barbara, where he had a beautiful home. Of course. And racehorses. But one Friday night, on the way, he hit the Santa Monica Mountains, and that was the end of him.
Wow.
He bought a Rolls Royce from Dean Martin. On the car, it had, over the glove box, it had Dean Martin. And when you're that rich, I'll never picture how he could do that. But he sent his secretary to go down and pick up the car. Man, I'd have gone down there myself.
Hey, I'm going. I'll be right there.
Sure.
But that was but anyway, I figured if I'd have bought $10,000 worth of stock the day that I joined the company, of course, there's no way we had $10,000. When I left 4.5 years later, with the stock had doubled a couple times and so on and so forth, that would have turned into $250,000.
Then you would have been suffering though.
Yeah.
We might not be here.
That's true.
So I ended up working on Miracle Mile
Did they have
and
the concert?
Wilshire Boulevard as
Where Dad was.
a assistant controller at a place called Imperial Oil and Grease.
We want to say goodbye.
Oh,
Happy
once
birthday.
again, thank you,
Yes,
dear.
you're welcome.
Yeah.
You're a
Yes,
treasure.
thank
Thanks.
you. It was really, really
Yeah.
Hi to
good. Thank you.
Robert for me.
I will.
I said
I
hi.
know. I will.
help?
Oh, yeah, we did. Thank you. We're good.
Hi,
They
dear.
did. Everybody else did.
You take
So
care.
good. Thank you. You all were engaged in conversation.
Come back, come visit us.
Anytime. Bye. Nice to meet you.
And I was working, it was on Wilshire Boulevard, about 2 blocks from La Cienega. And I was sitting in my office one day working at 12:30, and the owner of the company come walking by, and he stopped me and said, "Aren't you having lunch today, Jerry?" "No, sir. I have some work to do." He said, "Nah, come on, have lunch with me." So we go downstairs to the parking lot, get into his Rolls Royce, and drive over to Tail of the Cock, which is a very nice restaurant on La Cienega Boulevard. And we're sitting there, door opens, because it's kind of dim inside. Door opens, a whole bunch of sunshine falls through, and look up. A woman and a man come walking through. And I leaned over to him and I said, "Is that Elkie Summer?" He said, "Yeah, it is." He said, "You want to meet her?" Yeah. So we got up and walked over, and when she saw him, she came over and they knew each other evidently, give him a big hug. Of course, the movie stars know all the rich.
Yeah.
And then she introduced him to me, and wow. Anyway, that was fun.
You always liked Elkie
Couple
Summer,
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but you liked Sylvia Griffith way more.
Oh, yeah.
No comparison.
Sylvia Griffith is where it's at.
That's what I'm saying.
Grandpa knew it.
So then you went from there to
From there, I went in the valley and worked for Braywood Development Corporation.
Braywood. Gosh, I haven't heard that in a long time. Yeah.
And they're the ones that built a whole bunch of homes in the San Fernando Valley. They did one called Braemar, which were very expensive homes. And they did, I can't remember the name of the track, but it was real close to
San Gabriel Mountains? No.
no, the
Magic
entertainment.
Mountain?
Magic Mountain,
Magic Mountain.
very close.
Yeah.
Once again, I had an opportunity. I wanted to buy a house. So the owner that I worked for said, "Well, I can't do much about the selling price." But he said, "What I can do is cut down a large percent on any add-ons." And he said, like swimming pool or, furnishings or whatever. So I could get a 55% discount on adding a swimming pool. Which the house that we wanted was a 3-bedroom, brand new, beautiful, and it was selling for $25,000. And I said, $25,000? God, that seemed like, so we turned it down.
Oops.
Those houses are now selling for $500,000.
Right.
Or more.
3/4
Yeah.
of a million.
And left there,
After
went to Cinerama Inc. Yeah. Where I bumped into George Siegel one day on the street as we went to lunch. We worked on Robertson Boulevard, close to 3rd Street, and there was nothing on Robertson Boulevard. On one side, on the east side of the street, was nothing but interior decorating shops. But I mean, they were special. They were for Beverly Hills people, you know, golden knobs, accessories for showers, bathtubs, and so my office, I had several windows, and I could look out. One day I looked over at one of the shops. Lucille Ball was walking out.
Oh, man.
Caught Steve Garvey. Ran into George Siegel. And what's the Donna's name, that show about
Donna Mills. Donna Mills?
Donna Mills?
Blonde, yeah. Oh, it's
We
Landon.
rode down together in the elevator. She had gone on the same floor of where Pacific Theaters Accounting was. New Line Cinema was on that same floor. And we were walking down and looked, and I said, that's Donna Mills. So we walked out, and I made sure I walked faster than she was, and I opened the door for her. And she looked at me and smiled and said, thank you, young man. Of course, back then I was a young man. And I said, it was my pleasure.
And it really was.
Leonard Nimoy was our host at our Christmas party at the Beverly Hills Hilton. Leonard Nimoy.
Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yep.
We went to the party.
What's the Candy's name? We're 2 blocks away from the name of the hospital.
Kaiser?
Jeez, top hospital. Anyway, John Candy was walking on the
Cedars?
street. Cedars Sinai. Was walking down the street, and I was coming back from there because I'd had lunch at their cafeteria. They had a good cafeteria. And that was John Candy. Hey, John. I didn't say anything to him, but
Kitna?
no,
Oh,
John
John
Candy,
Candy.
the
Candy.
comedian.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, those are good times.
Yeah.
And you end up staying there for 20 years?
21 years.
21 years.
Yeah, at that Beverly Hills, I was given a 20-year plaque service on the stage.
So
Mike Foreman.
Cinerama was purchased by Pacific then?
Yeah.
It was kind of a merge thing?
Yeah,
I see.
because Bill Foreman was on the board of Cinerama Inc. And things started going bad for Cinerama Inc. So a bunch of us was offered a job with Pacific.
I see.
And
So to clarify too, is you came from the Valley after working for Braemar, right?
yeah, I worked in the Valley, and we were
And
living
then-
in Reinhardt, if I remember right.
Oh, you're living in Carson. You're traveling up that way.
That's a
From
Because
that's a
Redondo.
hell of
the
a-
only thing is
Redondo
where
Beach.
Redondo is. I was gonna get where were you? Were you going back and forth San Diego to Redondo?
No.
Or you guys moved from San Diego, came to Redondo?
Yes, we came to Redondo, and
And
that's
you
when
went
I
up to-
worked for computer science.
Oh, computer sciences. And then
Yes,
once
yeah.
computer sciences was over, you moved to Carson, Gardena, and went up. We're driving up to Braywood, and then Cinerama / Pacific Theaters.
Yep.
But when we bought the house in Carson, which was the first house we owned, cost $25,000. But then we could afford it with my GI.
Right. So quickly, Dad, not quickly, just briefly, whatever. When you guys were, before you guys divorced with Ellis, Grandpa Ellis, was he a farmer? I vaguely
No.
remember going and sitting on somebody's tractors and visiting Grandpa Ellis.
No, that's Oscar. Oscar
Oscar
was
had
a
a-
foreman of a very small construction outfit that built ponds for farmers,
Ah,
graded
Oh.
roads,
Your battery's
and
going.
so on and so forth.
okay. You're all right.
It's gonna keep going. We'll just run it dead.
Yeah,
And
so
was
that
the deal.
explains.
He, in fact, I had a picture of me sitting on a big D4 cat
Ah,
and learning to the pedal and you turn left and you hit the right one and you turn right.
Yeah, it seems like he must have been put me up on a Caterpillar, the green one, the wheat one with the big long blade in the back. I vaguely remember sitting in one of those with some sort of barn coverage, not a barn, a full enclosed barn, but a covering, almost like a metal, pretty
Carport.
high covering. I don't remember. It seemed like green fields. What did Ellis?
Oh, was that in Burlingame?
Yes,
When
yes.
Oscar had one of those lawn tractors
Yeah.
that he loved to
Well, I
get
know
on
that
and-
he liked to get on it and mow the lawn
Yeah.
on the corner house there.
Yes.
What kind of work did Grandpa Ellis do?
Ellis owned the gas station that was next to the house.
Oh, okay.
On the corner of Market Street and something was a Skelly gasoline station. He
Okay.
owned that. And next door was a 3-bedroom house where we lived.
Okay. And Grandma Vi, she stayed home or did she work too?
Grandma Vi?
Is it who's Grandpa Ellis's?
Yeah, Grandma
Yeah.
Vi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they lived in St. Louis.
I think she worked as a waitress in St. Louis.
Didn't we meet them when we went to Kansas? I thought we met them.
One of the trips.
You may have.
Yeah.
I
One
thought
of
I
the
met
trips I
Grandpa
remember going
Ellis
to their
and Grandma
house.
Vi. I can't. We were talking about it before, and I don't quite remember, but I remember Grandpa Ellis. So I was trying to put the tractor story back together. I'm like, it seemed like I don't know if that was the same visit. So no, it was different. That's how Grandpa knew to take me to the pond because he says I'm going to take you catfishing at my friend's pond. So like 5:36 in the morning, it's still dark out, and he undoes the guy's fence. And from where I'm from, I'm like, that's breaking and entering. What's my grandpa doing? I'm like, my grandpa's breaking the law.
Chances are you built that pond.
And most likely now, it makes sense. He dug the pond for the guy.
He's like, this
Now
is
that we're speaking about him fishing for the
Oh,
first
yes.
time. I talked to him on the phone, and he said he caught a big fish, Dad. Oh man, it was big. And Oscar, I call him Oscar instead of Dad because he was a stepdad, and he said, "Call me Oscar." Actually, we called him Ock, an abbreviation. But I talked to him on the phone and I asked him, "How big is it?" He said, "Maybe 6 inches." When he got home,
It's like this big. It's like,
I said, "How big was that fish?" He said, "Dad, it was that big."
Of course it was.
And I said, "He's a real fisherman."
that's it.
Yeah, that's the beginning of your tiger shark or something. Yeah, it was this big.
Okay, I think that's good for now. That answers puts some of the things, plugs some holes.